everyone, this is cloudjonin1, your host for all things video games, bringing you some gameplay today from Freya the Starfall, game by Rosentica. Those who maybe aren't familiar with Freya the Starfall, it's a gacha game that focuses around a lot of in-depth strategy, team building, to defeat your opponent, try to make the best teams that you can. Today I'm just going to showcase the game a little bit from back to front, to show you some of its features that are out currently from the closed beta build, and in the next couple weeks we should be going into the open beta. So again, my name is cloudjonin1, just a community member of Rosentica and of the Freya group. I've played in the alpha test as well as the closed beta, and definitely looking forward to the open beta coming up here soon. In my history of playing, I've had the luck of being the #1 player at times. Didn't come anywhere near close to that during the closed beta test as more and more competitors began to funnel in, but I do know a little bit about the game. I'm currently level 98 and have some insight that I'd like to share with you guys. So when you get into Freya the Starfall, the first thing that you're going to want to do, like most gacha games, is start rolling for some units. So we're going to go to our recruit tab here and see what we can get into. We'll see that we have a lot of different banners to choose from. Currently in the beta build, you can pick between a common recruitment, an elite recruitment, and a legendary recruitment. The main things that are going to differentiate these are the stat pool as well as the skills that your characters get. Freya the Starfall is one of those interesting gacha games, probably the only one that I've seen take this route, where you have about the same amount of rarity with each character. That means every time that I do a gacha roll, I have the same amount of chance of getting this Lionheart as I do of getting this Alicia, as getting this Freya. Same thing with Tsubaki, Alluan, Bonbon, and Katarina, Gareth, and Vera. All units have the same rarity. There aren't any limited time chase units in the game currently. The main idea is just getting your squadron together, your mercenary team, composed to basically make the best team that you can. So we're going to go ahead and do a common recruitment today and see what that looks like. So as you can see, I have these summoning crystals up here, 1035. I'm going to spend 200 of them to recruit a new unit from this common recruitment banner. So we get our little summoning sequence here. And let's see who we get. Alright, so we pulled a Freya. It's a pretty good unit. We see a lot of different stats and some skills populating here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the characters for a second. I'll click Mercenary Details so I can look into her a little bit more. And so this is my unit. When she's summoned, she comes up as level 1. If I want, I can spend in-game resources called medals, which are basically experience points to level her up. As we can see, based on her stats, she has 5 main stats, as all characters do. Constitution, which affects her HP. Strength, which affects her ability to critically hit. Because she is the ranger class, the strength is not the primary stat that damage is based off of. For a ranger, that would be agility. So since she has an S rank in agility, that means she does good damage. Spirit is her ability to apply debuffs to an enemy unit as well as resist debuffs, and reflex is how fast she is, among other things. This will affect her evasion rate, this will affect her turn move order in battle. So as we level her up to level 3 and then level 4, level 5, you'll notice that the stats that she has an S in, she gets more points. The stats that she has a B in, she gets less points. So ideally, as you're pulling these characters, a quote-unquote perfect character would have stats that rank up to the highest, which is SS. That would give them the highest growth stat per level, which would ultimately give you the strongest unit when you get to level 40. As I leveled her up, I started to get these stat attribute points. So in this case, I have 8, 2 for each level that she's gained. So in this case, because she's a ranger, their primary focus is going to be on agility and on reflex. I typically always throw all my points into my damage dealing attribute, so in this case agility. So if I want to make Freya do more damage, I would add all my points into agility. If I want to make her go faster in game or have a higher evasion rate, I would put them in reflex. If for some reason I wanted her to be able to sustain a hit from an enemy unit, give her more health points, I would put it into Constitution. So in this case, I'm going to throw it all into Agility, and I'm going to save my choices. Each character comes with their own unique character skill. So Freya's is that upon landing a critical hit, or whenever she successfully evades or applies a debuff to an enemy, she gains a stack of Blade Waltz, which increases her agility, her reflection, and her spirit by 1%. Once she's stacked 12 of these Blade Waltz buffs, she gets to immediately perform a basic attack. So that means that Freya is going to be one of those ramp up characters. The longer the game goes on, the more her stats are going to increase by 1% every time that she either lands a critical hit, evades, or applies a debuff. Now we go over here to the right and look at the skills that this unit was populated with when they were drawn. So she has a super rare skill, 2 rare skills, and 1 common skill. The skill trees go all the way up to ultra rare and ultra rare plus, and the higher the rarity, typically the more impactful the skill is going to be in game. So currently she has one that increases her reflex by 10% of her agility. That's pretty good for a ranger, since your agility and your reflex are your strongest stats that they're going to be built off of. She has another one that basically does the same thing on a smaller scale. This one increases her agility by 8% of her reflex, so that's pretty good. The spirit increased by 6%. If you're wanting to build your Freya to do debuffs against enemy units, that can be a good choice, but typically I would try to reroll this one. And displacement resistance keeps them from being moved across the board whenever they get hit by knights. Again, not really one that I would typically look to keep. And as this is a lower rarity, this is probably going to be one of the ones that I would reroll first. You can level a character all the way up to level 40. Once they become level, I believe it's 22, you get 1 skill reroll orb, which would allow you to then change your skill if you wanted to. Typically, again, the ones that are less impactful or the ones that are less attractive to your team, don't synergize well, would be the ones that you would want to reroll. You'll have up to 2 chances to do this, and as you begin to play the game and rank up on the leaderboards, those that make it towards the top of the leaderboard each week, they get additional skill reroll orbs, which can be very impactful, very beneficial to make your strong team that's already near the top of the leaderboards increase them even further. One more thing to talk about when you gacha your units is looking up to see what kind of star sign they are affiliated with. So this Freya has a water sign, which currently by herself increases the amount of damage she's dealt by 2%, and reduces the amount of damage she's received by 2%, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but if you pair her up with 4 other characters, for a total of 5 characters with a water sign, it ultimately increases the damage your team deals by 24% and reduces the damage that they receive by 24%, which can be pretty significant. Obviously, it's a damage increase as well as a defensive damage decrease. So there are different signs in the game, and keeping track of what units you have with what signs can be very important when you build your team later on. You also have these awesome models, as you'll see them in the game. Eventually, as this gets polished, it would be nice to see her have like an attack animation here. But anyway, the art's pretty cool. Reminds me a lot of playing games on like the SNES days, or maybe like some of the older pixelated games like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics or things like that. So each skill class has a talent tree. So in this case, Freya is a ranger, which is denoted by the bow up here. So if I go into her talent tree, these are a lot of talents that are allocated towards rangers. So I've gone through these multiple times, many times for different characters. So for rangers, increasing her talent tree to increase things like agility and her reflex are very important, since that's going to be some of her primary stats as a ranger. As you put 5 points into this row, you'll have opportunities to go further down. And as you go further down the talent tree, you'll realize that these get stronger and stronger as you go. Getting down to the final row called keystones, these give you some of the most strongest talents that are impactful for your talent or for your unit class. So for rangers, some of the ones that I like to run are these called Hawkeye, which gives you a 100% accuracy hit rate. No unit will be able to block them or dodge them unless they have a special skill or something that kind of interferes with this one. I'm going to go ahead and go to my mercenary tab to show you some of the characters that I've already leveled up. And as you get in here, I've played this game for quite a while now and accumulated quite a few units. There are different ways that you can go about sorting them. So currently, I'll go by level. So I have a lot of units that I've leveled up to level 40. As you can tell, I have a lot of these green units up top. These are all rangers. It's probably my favorite class to play, and in my opinion, some of the most overpowered in the game. I have a few warriors, and I have a few knights. So I will go ahead and go into one of the knights that I have. So knights are going to act as your tanks in the game. This man's name is Gareth, and he was one of the favored units during the alpha test. He's got his full suit of armor, which is very suited, very fitting for a knight that's going to act as the tank in your team. As you can see, he has an SS stat in Constitution, with all of his points allocated there to give him 478 points allocated towards his health pool. Gareth's character skill gives him a 100% chance to block all incoming basic attacks and reduce the amount of damage that he takes from them by 20%. He also has the opportunity to do a displacement check on his opponent anytime he basic attacks them, which gives him a chance to knock them forward on the tile grid. My Gareth doesn't particularly have any great skills. As you can see, only 2 rares and 2 uncommons. If I placed high enough in the leaderboard to get skill reroll orbs, I would definitely try to increase some of his abilities here. Gareth is an Earth unit, has affinity with the Earth's symbol, which is what I was running in the closed beta test. When you run him together with 4 other characters that have Earth, it increases their main attribute by 24%. So when he was on a team and they got that 24% bonus, Constitution, which is his main stat, would receive that 24% bonus, which would probably be roughly around, we'll say 120, which can be pretty significant. When I go into a knight talent tree that's fully fleshed out, I can see that I have some skills here, talents, that increase his Constitution, which is his HP. I have a talent here that increases his HP by an additional 10% of his Constitution. I have a debuff skill here that gives him a 40% chance to stun his target whenever he attacks them, which is pretty strong if he can get that off. Causes the enemy opponent to skip a turn. I have a skill here that reduces the amount of damage that he takes by 20%, as long as he has a shield on. Going down to his keystones, this one's really strong on knights if you have an SS Constitution, but it increases his non-main stats, his strength, his agility, and spirit, his reflex by 30% of his Constitution. Got another one here that says that he gains a shield for 10% of his max HP, plus 20% of all of his lost HP at the start of each round. So obviously as a tank, I want him to live as long as possible. I want him to soak up damage and take attacks so that my units that don't have too much health points can survive and hide behind him. Look at one of the carries of my team. So this is Vera. From her stats, you can see that she has a C in Constitution, which means that she's pretty much going to die in one hit, so she definitely needs to be protected. But I can see for a ranger, she has a 490 SS stat in agility, and a 433 stat in reflex with an S rank, which is pretty strong. Again, when she's on a team with the earth signs, for that 24% bonus increase, she's going to get around an additional 125 points in her agility, which is rather significant. Vera's character skill is that whenever she attacks a unit, basically she looks and sees what kind of enemy class it is, if it's a knight, if it's a ranger, if it's a warrior, and every time she attacks an additional unit from that same class, she does a bonus 3% of damage. This one has a UR plus skill, which means that it's exclusive to Vera solely. So this one gives her the ability that when an ally falls, she gets to unleash 2 consecutive basic attacks with rage against her opponent. This is really strong, makes her a vengeance attacker, so whenever the enemy kills one of your units, you get to attack 2 more times, which is very strong to get extra turns and extra attacks in each game. Again, really quickly, looking at a ranger talent tree, I have talents that increase reflex, increase agility. Something that's unique about rangers is they have this ability to go into stealth. So this allows them that once they perform their first basic attack, anyone else that's an ally in the same column as them has to be targeted by an enemy before they can attack the stealth units. So that allows somebody who's squishy, like Vera, probably going to die in one hit to kind of further conceal themselves and hide in the back line, making it less likely for them to die, especially if you put a knight in front of them that can soak up the damage for them. As you get into kind of like their keystones, their most strongest talents at the bottom of the talent tree, like I said, I like to run Hawkeye on all my rangers. This gives them a 100% hit rate against their enemies. One of the most frustrating things that you can witness or encounter is missing your attacks. So making sure that you hit 100% of them is pretty strong. And the one that I run here is Child of the Shades. Basically, whenever a ranger is in that stealth mode, it gives them an additional 15% increase to their agility and their reflex, as well as a buff to their critical damage dealt by 30%. So basically your rangers are going to act as your assassins. Basically one shot, one kill is what you want to try to go for. They can definitely take out other rangers in one hit. Sometimes I've seen them take out warriors in one hit. And occasionally, if they get critical hits in, they can even do quite a bit of damage to a knight. So some of my favorite units in the game. Going down to warriors, the red class. This is my Tsubaki. As you can see, she has an SS in her strength, as well as an SS in her reflex. Her ability is one that increases her agility by 20%. My agility stat is okay with an A rank here. She gains a stack of Shingen upon critical hit or evasion. Whenever she stacks those Shingen buffs, it increases her evasion ignore rate and her critical hit resistance by 10% per stack. So again, a lot of these characters, as the game goes on, they start to ramp up in their skills and their talents, their abilities, makes them stronger the longer the game goes on. As a warrior, one of the biggest frustrations that I have, like I said, is occasionally missing their attacks. Thankfully, she has this UR skill, Unwavering Heart, that allows her to ignore 50% of the enemy's evasion rate, which gives her a good chance of hitting her opponents even if they have a high reflex stat. As I go to her talent tree, warriors are going to focus on doing more damage and kind of healing off that damage. As you can see, I have this Bloodthirst talent. This allows her to heal for 10% of all the damage that she deals. That's really important. It can allow her to give her some sustainability while she fights. I have some skills, talents here that increase her invasion rate, some that take her light weapon damage and increase it by the amount of her agility. And then for the keystone talent, a lot of times my warriors, I'll run things like Blood of the Berserker, which increases her basic attack damage by 30%, gives her a 2% damage every time she attacks based off her HP, but thankfully with a skill like Bloodthirst comboed with it, I just heal all of that back. Also have a talent here that makes it that she converts 20% of her critical damage reduction ratio into her evasion rate, so it makes her harder to hit. And anytime she dodges an attack by an opponent, she gets to perform a basic attack on them. So that's really good to make her a retaliatory attacker. Sometimes if somebody misses her, she can attack back and kill them, giving her an extra attack and allowing you to knock down your opponent even further. So yeah, a lot of beautiful units in this game. As I said, there are different ways to kind of organize your mercenary box. Go by knights, which are your tanks, your warriors, which are kind of more of your DPS units, and your rangers, which are going to be kind of more of your assassins. So once you've used all your gacha crystals and got some characters that you want to play with and kind of level up and build a team around, you're going to go into your formation tab. From here, you can kind of organize your units and move them around to see what suits your play style. So in this case, I kind of have a weird setup because of some of the skills that my units have. Bonbon is my tank, so typically I would want to put my tank up front to protect some of my squishier units in the back. My lineup is kind of odd because my Yanwan has an ability called Crimson Elixir that whenever an ally would die, she switches places with them, gives them a huge damage buff, and allows them to attack immediately. So my strategy is hopefully that when the enemy team begins to fight me, hopefully they will try to kill my Vera first, or have a Yanwan ranger that allows them to target my backline and tries to kill my Tsubaki, in which case my Yanwan will switch with one of the two and allow them to attack and give them huge damage buffs. That's why I currently run them the way that I do in this formation. As you can see, I have this astrological addition for my earth signs. All of my units have the earth affinity, which allows all my units to get that 24% buff increase to their stats. Depending on which units you're using and how you're doing different things, we're going to go into the recruitment tab here for a second. If I click this little exclamation mark, it's going to kind of explain to me how the recruitment works and what types of things we get from our characters. So when we recruit a mercenary, they're going to have 4 skills that they get. They're going to get attributes of their skills given out to them. So pulling a unit with a UR or UR plus skill, you have about a 1% chance of doing. So they're very highly sought after, very rare. Getting a super rare skill, also pretty low chances. Rare and common are going to be what you're going to be pulling the most. As you get your stats and your growth rank populated, like I said, you're going to want units that have that SS stat, giving them 7 to 12 points per growth rate. And if you pull something that has a C, that means they're not going to be that great in that talent. When we look at the star signs or the affinities, the elemental alignments, we have fire signs, so especially on a team that moves quickly and does a lot of damage, you can increase your damage output by up to 48%, very significant. The earth sign team that I showed you gets that 24% buff boost to their main attribute. If you use an air team, they get a 24% boost to all of their non-main attributes. If you do a water sign, that can give you up to that 24% damage increase on your output and a negative damage decrease as you're taking damage. So depending on what kind of strategy you want to build around, keeping those signs aligned can be very important, and sometimes you might even want to do a combination of 2 to 3 signs of one color and 2 to 3 of another. So keep that in mind, enjoy experimenting, that's the fun of the game. Also, when you go into this recruitment tab, if you want to recruit a specific class, let's say I need a knight or a tank for my team, I can do this recruitment banner and I'm guaranteed to pull a knight. I can do this one, guaranteed to pull a warrior, or do this one where I'm guaranteed to pull a ranger. So enough about that. We'll start building our formation. I have this team already set up. We're going to go into our clash mode and take a look at things and see how everything works. So as we can see, during this season, beginning to play, I've been attacked by a fellow member of my White Lotus Guild, and I successfully defended against them. I can look and see what team I fielded, what team they fielded, get a general idea of what they're running, and maybe in my mind play out maybe how the game went a little bit, but obviously a lot easier to see in person. We have a ranking leaderboard. Currently you can see here I was rank 57. Go back into previous seasons, see kind of where we stood. Season 5 was the end of the closed beta test, ended somewhere around this 25th place. And some of these aren't populated the way I remember them being, but if I were to go off of the different seasons, looks like I have the highest season rank in Season 2 of rank 15. As you get into play, like most games, you get rewards for playing more, so as you rank up and get wins, your rank will increase. So each of these gets kind of a special payout as you hit these ranks for the first time. Mythic being the highest one that you can obtain, giving you 2,000 crystals, 1,000 medals to level up your characters, Stardust and battle tickets to help you continue playing each day. You get weekly rewards paid out based on your rank as well. And then you get a ranked reward based on how high you go up in the leaderboards. The most rarest thing that you're going to want to accumulate being these skill reset orbs that allow you to improve your characters. So we're going to go into Fleet Duel here, see who we can pair up against. So this is the formation that I'm going to be using. I'm going to see that my opponent is this one named Sacrifix. So at the beginning of each round, you're going to get the opportunity to pull from 4 randomly selected gears of different rarity values that both increase your stats and give you special abilities. I'm going to refresh my shop here and see what comes up. I'm going to go with Heart Guard of the Dawn, probably one of the best items in the game. If one of my units would die, it allows them to survive the hit, gives them invulnerability for 2 rounds, and increases their primary attribute by 12%. So my units are going to start moving based on their reflex level. So Tsubaki here has 450 in her reflex stat, which means that she has 900 speed, which allows her to go first. And I'm going to see some of these units of my opponent and myself kind of take turns going back and forth. Each unit is going to attack once, unless they have a certain skill or ability that allows them to attack more than once. As you can see, I'm starting to knock out some of my opponent's characters, and currently my team's doing pretty well. My Freya just ate a critical hit, which caused her to die, which was unfortunate. But we can see different characters kind of moving around the fields based on some of their skills and abilities. The round was now over, so I get to then pick another item to add to my team. So this Aegis of the Sanctified reduces the damage of the wearer and everyone in the same column by 15%. I'm going to go ahead and put that on my Tsubaki to again buff everyone that's in this column. This game is interesting where it defines columns as left to right and rows as up to down. So it's something important to keep in mind. So I did just defeat my opponent. I come to the victory screen and I see that I got these battle rewards for winning. I see that my rank went up by 20 points here. As you go up a certain amount of threshold, you'll see this nameless, then go up to the next rank, and so on and so forth. As well as if you continue to lose, you'll lose 20 points per loss, and your rank will go down. I can click on these exclamation marks next to my units to see how much damage they did on offense, and on defense, how much damage they took. You can kind of see my tank did the least amount of damage, but typically they'll take the most amount of damage from the enemy team. And I can kind of keep on playing and see who I match up against. This is YZG, who I know has had some of the top teams on the leaderboard in the past. And so again, I have different rarities of gear or equipment that I can pick from. Some of these are going to be more suited to your team than others. So in this case I run a lot of rangers, so having somebody that does more damage based on their placement on the grid is something that's pretty attractive to me. So I'm going to put that on Tsubaki, and we're going to see how this game goes. So they have an Alicia, which is very difficult to beat for a team of rangers, because every time she's attacked, she gets to counterattack. Unfortunately, my Tsubaki missed her attack, which, like I said, is one of those things that's the most frustrating to see. Unfortunately, their Alicia tank pretty much just ate the entirety of my attack, but then thankfully Vera was strong enough that she was able to kill it on the second strike. And Tsubaki has an area of effect damage that hits up and down of anyone who she targets. So we noticed that she kind of hit those that were around her main target. And yeah, unfortunately it looks like I'm probably going to lose this match. Thankfully my Vera has her revenge attacker ability. So anytime I kind of lose ally, thankfully she's been counterattacking. When Tsubaki lands this, which she did, I actually have a chance to stay in the game. So we'll see what kind of gear I get, hopefully a good one. Alright, so Deathbringer is probably my best action. If I can kill one of my enemy units, I get to keep attacking until I don't do a killing strike. So my likelihood is probably pretty low, Tsubaki surviving. But I don't think my Vera is able to kill the enemy Alicia. So I'm going to put this on Tsubaki and hope she gets the kill before she dies. It was good that she evaded that attack. She gets to counterattack, which the enemy ranger dodged. Unfortunately, the Alicia killed my Tsubaki, and she's probably going to counterattack and kill my Vera here. So it was a close game. Had I had different gear, I could have potentially won that one, but that's part of the beauty of the game, is that every game is going to play out differently, even if it's against the same opponent with the same team. You're always going to have different gears to pick from, with different stat attributes and buffs. Like I said, sometimes you're going to have really lucky days, sometimes you're going to have not so lucky days. You're going to decide, hey, do I want to put all the equipment on one character to make them kind of my hyper carry, or am I going to want to kind of split it out amongst my team to give them all a better chance of performing better? Again, you're just going to kind of have to look at your opponent, see how things go. Currently I'm running things at 1 time speed, but if it's a little slow for your taste, you can always speed it up to 2 or 3 times. But as you can see, each character has their own unique attack animation. I personally think they look really good. a lot of different strategical depth as you kind of get into this. You know, who do you want to buff? Do you want to focus on offense, on defense, on a combination of the two? You know, do you want to have one carry with a lot of tanks and units that protect them, or do you want to have, you know, multiple characters that can sustain hits and deal damage equally, things of that nature. It's a lot of different things that, you know, you kind of come into as you begin to play the game. You'll begin to you know, buff your units, increase them, make them stronger. You're going to keep wanting to recruit new units to see if you pull anything that's more attractive than the ones that you currently have. You're going to want to keep, you know, experimenting with your lineup and see what happens. So in this case, you know, if I were to pull this Freya, you know, as a starting unit, definitely not a bad one. As I begin to play more and more and kind of build my way up onto the leaderboards, probably wouldn't be super attractive with just an S in agility and an S in reflex. I would want it to be SS and SS ideally, and work to continually pull more units that hopefully fulfill those requirements and have, you know, higher level skills like UR plus. Other than the clash mode, there's also an adventure mode, which is still being fleshed out. The main things kind of to take from this one are, this is kind of the AI generated mode. This one's a little more hectic and chaotic at the moment, but definitely something of interest to see. Let's see, who do I want to put this on? Put this one on there. Basically, you get all these skills that you accumulate. You can see on the left side of my screen. Those are my buffs that I've accumulated. And these are the buffs that my opponent has accumulated by going through what we'll call kind of like the campaign or the story mode as it is currently. Basically, all of these are additional buffs that apply to each and every one of my units as the game goes. Also, each time that I enter into adventure mode, I get to put one equipment on one of my characters, and that continues to carry over through all the additional rounds that I fight in. I think you're allowed to lose 6 times before your team is retired, and then you have to start over. But as you go through, kind of showcase a little bit of the AI component, where you are given a prompt, and you get to respond to that prompt. Basically based on how you respond, if you give a neutral response, if you give a good response, or if you give an evil response, you'll get a certain skill given to your team that kind of aligns with whatever your choice was. Which, like I said, can make things kind of crazy to see all these buffs that are kind of all popping at the same time. That's because my opponent has a lot of knight skills that give them healing, give them shields, so it makes them very hard to kill. So it looks like they're slowly kind of whittling down my side while I'm not really doing any damage to them at all, which is pretty unfortunate. But it is what it is, and I'll be able to show you the prompt here in a second, hopefully when the battle ends. As you can see, when the game is turned up to 3 times speed, everything goes by pretty quickly. But if you want to turn it down so that you can kind of see things a little bit more in depth and get an idea of what's happening, you know, you can turn it down to whatever speed suits you. So here's kind of a prompt. I'm not going to take the time to read it. I normally would, but just for briefness, I'm going to go through here. So let's say I want to say, I'm just going to make my decision based on flipping a coin. Then typically that becomes a neutral action, which says true neutral, and I get a skill added to my team based on that affinity. So in this case, it is Heart of the Sword. I gain a debuff resistance and damage reduction equal to half of the critical hit rate. So that will apply and stack to all of my characters. And, you know, certain affinities, certain actions typically lend to giving you certain types of skills. As you get into it, you'll kind of learn, hey, if I do an evil affinity, this gives me something typically from the ranger class. If I do something good, typically something from the knight class. If I do something neutral, a lot of times I'll see things from the warrior class. So, you know, that can help you when you're making your decisions as to how you want to build your team. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is cloudjonin1 showcasing the closed beta build, version 0.3.16 of Freya the Starfall. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a great day, and see you next time.